Hey, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to budget work session number 5 on Monday, May 11, 2020. It is now 8 p.m. I would still like us to start this evening with a Pledge of Allegiance, if you would, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, if you would, just for everybody's knowledge, City Clerk, would you just read off who's in attendance from the council, please?
Sure. I have Councilmember Harrison, Councilmember Gardner, Councilmember Boffo, Councilmember Wolfley, Councilmember Ndebumadu, and Mayor Adams. And I believe I see Councilmember Steph, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, we got them all.
Hey, thank you all so very much, and thank you this evening. And we'll get right into it. I'd like to turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Joe Minor, you on the line?
I'm here.
Okay, good. All right, then we'll start with the, in accordance with our schedule, we'll start with the planning department. The Planning and Development, Department of Planning and Community Development provides professional support by making recommendations on development proposals to the city manager and the city council and conducting long-range special studies. The department's mission is to influence in a positive and constructive way and with significant citizen involvement the growth and physical development of the city, thereby ensuring its consistency with approved plans, the land use policies and guidelines of the City Council, and developmental regulations of Prince George's County. If you look at page 129 is where we're starting here. And the first objective for 2020 is the participate in the update of the 2006 Bowie and vicinity area master plan. This is an ongoing objective, and within there, as you can see from Mr. Monich's text there have been a series of meetings associated with the management of the area master plan, and park and planning was, in summary, the past year park and planning seemed to be organizing their operations to update the plan, and we have been participating with them. As a matter of fact, one of the meetings was held here at that City Hall. If you look at B, there is the complete the design plans from Maryland 197. In 2019, the new roadway concept for the project was developed by Maryland State Highway Administration Consulting that lowers the design speed while conforming the design of the practical design guidelines and practical design review recommendations. Also, the new roadway concept is expected to reduce noise impacts. In 2020, the SHA Highway Hydraulics Division will be developing a new stormwater management and drainage concept for the new roadway. One of the problems that the state highways is wrestling with, they're trying to figure out a way to lower the cost of the improvements and also make it what it seems more affordable for them. State Highway will send an informational newsletter to the community advising the status of the project after the design of the 30%, design is 30% complete, and hold meetings with the citizens. So we are participating with State Highway Administration as they try to get through and complete the design phase of this program. But right now, they're looking for ways to lower the cost of the widening and make it more financially feasible. If we go to page 130 here, we'll see that the one objective is to continue annexation of adjacent properties wherever possible in accordance with the city's annexation policy. There are no annexations for that fiscal year, and so we are simply compiling data and working with organizations and or persons who would like to be a part of the city, but there were no recommendations made in 2020. There are no significant numbers. I think, Joe, if you could you explain why there's a difference of 2,000 in the number of public notice letters mailed out in 2020 for the council?
Joe, you're on mute.
Joe, you're out there?
Thank you. I was talking and I did not unmute. So, good evening, council members. I'm Joe Minor, the planning director. The type of notice that we're using, we have public letters and we also have signs that we post on properties. We've found that because of the applicants providing informational mailings, that there probably is not the need to do as many pieces of mail going out. And so while we estimate roughly an increase in number of development cases, the types of cases that we're anticipating involve a smaller area of mailing. In other words, if we're going to do a departure from design standards or that type of case, it requires that you send letters to the adjacent property owners only versus the 500-foot radius, which is what we would do for a typical large development project. And so it's the nature of the development cases that we forecast for the upcoming year that would affect the extent of our notifications.
Oh, thank you. As we move on, the bottom of 130, we look at the objectives for fiscal year 2021. Number one there is participate in an update of 2006 Bowie and Vicinity Master Plan, which I mentioned was an ongoing experience. Two is complete an inventory of the existing conditions of the Bowie byway identified in the Trails Master Plan and related connections by March of 2021. Also plant 100 trees on private residential properties through the Plant One Tree on Us program by June 30, 2021. Number four, initiate a neighborhood engagement program to help implement the 2020-14 sustainability goal number CT5, which is to involve 6,000 residents in events and programs that strengthen the neighborhood connections. Number five, draft design guidelines for the complete streets by September 2020. The significant budget change here is basically a reclassification of their administrative assistant, and we are just simply, making sure that we document and change the classification to specifically what this person's doing. There are 5 persons in this department. Significant expenses of $495,000 in salary and wages, $175,000 in fringe benefits. Also, as far as contractual services, I'll defer to Mr. Minor to explain that particular $78,400 expense. Joe?
Okay, that contractual service item is primarily being made up of a $75,000 study that we're using as a follow-on exercise to the approval of the Trails Master Plan that Council approved last year. And so the Trails Master Plan identified a primary route through the city, which we call the Bowie Byway. And the Bowie Byway is a combination of on-road and off-road trails that would serve the entire city from north to south. And so the recommendation of the plan was to have this follow-up study, to hire a consultant to go out into the field and actually document the conditions on the ground so that we can come up with recommendations for constructing this trail system, this Bowie Byway trail system. We did obtain a cost estimate from the consultant who did the Trails Master Plan. That was in the area of roughly around $75,000. And so we believe that's what that would take in order to get that major study accomplished. The other items in our professional services budget, we have annual expenditures for technical reports, about $1,000. We also have Green Bowie outreach materials, giveaways and things that we do. We also sponsor the Farmers Market Bag. If you're familiar with that, it has a Green Bowie logo on one side. We co-sponsor that with Matt Corley in the events department. And so that makes up our regular expenditures. So primarily that 78,000 is made up principally of the trails study that I mentioned.
Oh, thank you. If we go to page 132, that is the last page in the planning budget. The program supplement of $35,000, I'd like to break that down for you. The Neighborhood Mini Grant Program, which is a grant program for the city to involve residents in events and programs and that strength and connection that I mentioned earlier. There's $5,000 set aside for that. Plant One Tree on Us, which is a turnkey program available for residents that involves city planting, canopy trees on residential property. That's a $25,000 expense. And the Energy Audit Reimbursement Program, eligible residents can apply to receive reimbursement from the city to offset the cost of home energy audits. That was a $10,000 expense. At this point, we'll prepare to take any questions regarding the planning and community development budget.
City manager, and consistent with that one reclass, I believe there is no cost to incur, correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you,
quick question here, or comment as well. First of all, I want to say, last year's or the current year's item C for objectives and results. Joe, you mentioned that we didn't have anything in the pipeline, and I think that there really is actually a bit more to it than that. I recognize that we don't have anything in the pipeline at the moment, but I do believe with the arrival of a number of new members of the council, we've had a difference in outlook on annexation and policies for that sort of thing. And I would think it would be a good objective to have if we could, for this coming fiscal year, review and renew the annexation and planning policy that the city has. Because I know in the past we had a growth map, and I'm not sure that that's consistent necessarily with what this council might be interested in. And I certainly know that there are annexations that probably would not have found the same degree of, shall we say, favor with the current body as was in as we saw in the past. So can we add that to the fiscal year objectives to have a review and development of a new annexation policy?
Certainly, it's a very timely thing to do, so we can add that very easily.
Thank you. Thank you.
If there aren't any other questions, we'll excuse Mr. Meinert and move on to IT. And the IT budget's on page 83.
Oh, you got off easy.
Yeah, he got off easy, yeah. All right, then We'll go to the IT department. The Information Technology Department delivers economical technology products, solutions, and services to all city departments. The major goal of the department is to ensure sound technology solutions are implemented to assist departments in delivery of the city services by providing reliable communications and modern infrastructure. This goal is accomplished by collaborating with city departments, other city departments, to plan for efficient and effective use of technology. If we look at the objectives for 2020, A was to explore applications offered by Office 365 that are not currently in use and determined if any of these applications can benefit the city operations. And that review was completed by 2020. The IT staff reviewed the Teams, OneDrive, Planner, Power Apps, and of course the Corona situation here caused us to go to warp speed when it came to Teams and other applications. So we're on course with that. If I look at number B there, it's review existing software packages and solutions to determine possible vulnerabilities and duplication. Utilizing information to reduce institutional vulnerabilities and potentially produce cost savings. Review and recommendations will be completed by December 2019. This is an ongoing project, and the write-up there, it says existing software packages have been reviewed and staff working on viable replacements for software that have been deemed to have vulnerabilities and or duplication. So that is also an ongoing process that we've got going there. One thing I like to say about the IT department, as we move forward, there are, if for some reason that there's a service that can be provided, backup services by the county, the state, in police, public works, but the reality is if our IT operations aren't successful, there is no backup. So that's a significant position for Mr. Peterson and his team to be in, but they're doing a great job, especially during this pandemic. Number C there, coordinate with the business operation manager to produce a plan to add the new Bowie Ice Arena to the city's network and complete the plan by December 31st, 2019. The objective that's been pushed forward, and they plan to complete that in 2021. And we're on the timetable with the construction of the Iceplex itself. D, create a strategic plan. Mr. Peterson, this is an internal document for IT, for which, of course, the manager and the assistant city manager will be involved in. We're moving forward with that, with the objective to have it done by the end of June. And the objective here is to take a look at the challenges that the department's facing, and look internally and see how they can become a better and more efficient operation. E, the IT department will continue to test backup systems and system redundancies in each quarter and conduct user education in an effort to prevent system attack. This is continuing and ongoing objective. The IT department will report on this at the end of the fiscal year. And we are, again, taking a look at what we have, because as you know, in the IT area, things can become obsolete really quickly. I don't think there are any particular significant differences here between workload from one year to the next. The objectives for 2021 are to explore the impact and tasks required to change the city from cityofbowie.org to cityofbowie.md.gov. This will include communications with all departments to determine the cost implications and strategy to complete the transition. The plan to be completed by December of this year. Review current backup strategies and determine ways to improve data protection and redundancies, which is an ongoing process we talked about with the last goals. 3, explore strategies for reducing printing costs for the city, review deployment of all small-scale printers, and replace printers with maintenance issues. Consolidate printing services where available so we can share the printing workload. And 4, there to begin to address items in the issue-based strategic plan for IT that he'll have completed by the end of this year. There are no significant changes to IT budget. There are 15 people in the IT department, and you all may know we added 2 people last year. That was the first time in 10 years that they had had any, or longer, since they had had any additional people. Salaries and wages are $1.2 million. Fringe benefits, $367,000. Contract, their professional services, that at $155,400. That's the use of virtual technology as we move into that arena, and significantly. Communications, $375,300. That's our telephone system, and that's used for government purposes. And down here, repair and maintenance, annual maintenance contracts and repairs on our computer equipment and other, and including the city's INET maintenance, which about $100,000 of that is for INET. Dropping down to materials, supplies, minor equipment, at numbers 505, 100, providing for cost of personal computers, servers, printers, and all things associated with maintaining our computer systems. Once again, I'd like to commend the, we have a lot of employees that are doing really, really great work and working under arduous situations. In an arduous situation, of course, our police, our solid waste guys, and also the people who kept us operating with it. It's been the IT department with moving us into, fast forward into the virtual world. And they've got us teleworking and working, our people working remotely who did not and could not have done it before, and rather seamlessly. We were ready to entertain any questions about the IT budget. So, if there are no questions about the IT department.
I've got a couple questions.
All right, proceed.
The expected one. A couple questions for you. And the first one is, maybe I missed this, but I know we're moving from cityofbowie.org to cityofbowie.md.gov. What's inspiring that move?
It's generally recommended for city governments to have the .gov at the end of their URL. If you were to try to do a search on any .gov and say, I don't know if you're familiar with doing an MX lookup, you wouldn't be able to find .govs, and it makes it harder for folks to spoof our organization. As it's very easy for them to do it now, and they're actually doing it much more now that we're in this coronavirus situation. But that's the major reason, and it's just time. We're a local government, not a .org.
I appreciate that, Todd. Thank you. And first of all, thank you for everything that you're doing. I've had opportunity to sit down with you a couple times, and you're just doing phenomenal stuff. So thank you for that. Couple more questions, and I promise I won't be too hard on you. I see that we are, okay, so FY21, it looks like we went from FY16 to FY21, it looks like we went from 44 servers to 70 servers. Are those on-premises servers, or can you just give us a little bit of background there?
Most of our servers are virtual servers, so that's why the number may seem a little bit high. There's not 70 physical servers, but they're mostly all virtual. Some of those servers are indeed in the cloud, but I can probably talk to you more about that offline rather than talk about
Understood.
our infrastructure.
I understand. And just a follow-up question for you, because that number is increasing, is that 70 contributed to an increase in costs? Because like, I mean, when you see numbers go up, you automatically associate costs with it. Is that an increase in cost with that 70, wherever they are?
Not necessarily. Most of the cost increases are due to repair and maintenance. Maintenance costs will be ever rising. For instance, with, say, our Microsoft licenses, the more people we have, the more licenses we have, the higher the cost. The more we expand our network in terms of switches, et cetera, we have to pay more maintenance on those items, and those costs are always rising. That's how these organizations make their money.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, a couple more things. When you say off-site data storage and the $150,000 cost, I mean, and we can talk about that offline, but I'm just trying to understand from a data storage perspective, why are we spending so much money on that?
Why are we spending so much money for backups?
On the off-site data storage, like, is there not a more cost-efficient way to do that?
We're budgeting for that. We're going to see how much that's going to cost, but we're estimating that will be the cost for the amount of data that we have. And data storage just costs money.
I understood. I work for a tech company. I understand that. When it comes to communications, and it says for all the telephone services, are these physical like what exactly are we paying for $375,000? Are these physical telephones? Are these like, what exactly is the deal there?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
It's under communications for telephone services. Wait, hold on one second. If you're in City Hall, could you mute? Because that's probably why you hear the echo.
No, there's no echo. You're just cutting in and out.
It's cutting in and out because somebody's not muted, so it's an echo on my side that's breaking me up. But basically what I was asking is, for the telephone services, why are we spending $375,000 on that?
Well, we have a phone service for the entire city. We also manage a police call center for emergency calls, cell phones, dispatch.
So what I'm trying to understand
backup.
is how much of that is physical equipment versus the call center. Like, what is the breakdown of that cost?
I'd have to get back to you on that to give you a granular breakdown on that. But I mean, in general, those are the costs for the $375,000.
Right. So basically, I'm going to make a request. If you could provide council with the breakdown of that cost, how much of that $375 is going towards the call center? Because I'm pretty sure you can get a cheaper calling plan. I know whether that's whatever subscription you have or
I'm sorry, it's not a calling plan. It's a call center. It's not a calling plan.
So this is a call center.
It's a dispatch.
This is our police dispatch
calling center. It's not a plan. So it's not like you can go to Verizon and compare it with T-Mobile and find a lesser plan. It's a physical call center with dispatch workers and.
Thank you. So let me get back to you.
We'll get the breakdown. We'll get you the breakdown of what it's for. No problem.
Okay, hold on. Let me just read it because it reads wrong. For telephone services to all city buildings used for general governmental purposes. What does that mean? It doesn't state a police call center.
So we have cell phones that we have for city employees. We have physical phones that are at people's desks that they use to conduct city business. It's a voice over IP system. I'm just not.
Okay, cool. I'd like to get the breakdown.
Sure, we'll get the
provide
breakdown to the council, no problem.
Thank you. Moving on to repair and maintenance. Under repair and maintenance, it looks like you have repairs on it. Actually, let's just make this easier. Can we get a breakdown on repair and maintenance for the 680,000? I'm gonna request that. Then also, I'm gonna request a breakdown for commodities for the 505,000. Let me just make that easier.
Okay, we'll get that to you.
Thank you.
All right, I have a couple of quick questions as well. First of all, just a quick comment. I think it's a great idea to move over to the .gov domain. Have we purchased by chance the cityofbowie.com as well as .us and things like that?
Yes, we've actually had City of Bowie, Maryland.gov for a couple of years now. We've been keeping them until we can make this change. We just wanted to make sure we had that so that no one else would purchase it.
Yeah. What about the other standard ones, the .coms as well? Just
.com.
In the interest of protecting the asset from being spoofed.
Yes, .com, .net, .org.
Perfect, and they all redirect to .org.
Yes.
Perfect. Second question for you: who's doing the hosting for our current web infrastructure?
The website. Civic Plus.
All right, and do they do? Are we using an application from them as well?
An application to do what?
For the content management, is it? Do they have a platform for that?
Yes, all of our staff folks who are in charge of their respective piece of the website are able to update their content themselves because of the app.
Okay. So, all right. So is that something that you're also reviewing in terms of service providers, as opposed to say using something like Drupal or something along those lines?
We're not looking to make a change at the moment, no.
Okay. When was the last time you looked at that?
I'd have to ask. I'm not 100% sure, but certainly not within the last 3 years since I've been here.
Okay. And all right. Posting. All right. If you could get a little more info on that, that'd be helpful. I just want to make sure that we're using a service that continues to, shall we say, adapt with the times. I don't think we've had any issues with service that I can recall, but site response times and everything else, those are still good.
Say one more time.
The service that Civic Plus is providing us, for example, just response times for the website, are their KPIs still good? We had any issues with them?
We have not. Also, just the Civic Plus is also a product that is used by some other local governments in the area as well. So we're on par with those folks as well, with my counterparts as well.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, then. If there are no other questions for IT, we'll move to page 155 for equipment acquisition discussion. Thank you, Todd. If you look at page 155, which is equipment acquisition, the services that we provide for the 18,000 plus residents in the city of Bowie, we need trucks and other equipment to do that, and periodically they expire and we have to replace them, and that's what this is about. If you look at the first set of columns there, you'll see the source of the money that we use to help fund this, and that's $316,000 from interest income, $1,183,300 from the appropriated fund balance. We transfer $2,171,600 from the general fund, and we sell the assets that we are replacing, and we expect to get $100,000 in assets for that. And the total is for this year is $3,771,400. Now the expenditures are are broken down by 5 department areas, functional areas. In general government, we're going to propose to replace $545,600 in equipment. Public safety, $430,000. Public works, $452,900. And parks and recreation, $216,400. And reserve for replacement brought in is going to be $2,126,500, and you get that same total that you have up there, which is $3,771,400. If you go to page 156, there's a more detailed breakdown. You'll see that, for example, in IT, we're going to, in general government there, we're going to contribute to the volunteer fire department for equipment. That's $62,000 there. We're going to replace a server backup software, electronic doors, and we're going to, on the communications, we're going to buy a van for the communications division so we can do a better job of getting around and videotaping and covering things for $60,000. Drop down to public safety. We're going to replace a Ford Focus at $31,600, and that's going to be the electric, that's in housing inspection, code enforcement. That's going to be an electric vehicle. For that, we're buying that. Under emergency management, we're going to use get a new surveillance trailer, and that's going to cost us $75,000. And there are other examples throughout here where we are buying equipment. Just so you understand how this occurs during the course, before we propose the budget, each department director has to present what they would like for their budget, and a part of that is equipment to be replaced. Now, the fact, that I've spent a lot of time in motor pools and public works departments, and I'm skilled in material maintenance. And so what we do is take what we did this year, we had our maintenance operation take a look at all vehicles that were being put up for replacement. And we evaluated the service records, the maintenance records, and to determine the life of the vehicle and or a piece of equipment, and whether it was essential to replace it this year or not. And so these vehicles and pieces of equipment that are listed here are essential for replacement. And otherwise, we may find ourselves in a situation where we cannot perform a critical service because a piece of equipment is no longer is failed. And to give you an idea of and how we plan for this financially, if you go to page 158 and you look at the say the number 1 vehicle there, which is a 2020 Chevy Traverse that I drive, right? If you look at the first column there, you'll see that the vehicle costs $31,419. We've estimated the life of that vehicle to be 8 years. We also schedule a replacement of that vehicle in 2028. Now, when 2028 comes around, whoever the city manager is at that particular time, if they do what I do, are going to take a look at that vehicle and see if it still has, what operational life is still left in it. All right, so they estimate the cost for replacement in the next column is $33,000. So therefore, we're going to plan to reserve and save $4,100, $4,106, in 21, 22, 23, 24, and so that when we get to 2028, we will have saved up the money to replace that vehicle, and it doesn't become a significant burden on the budget to pull the money out of nowhere. Now, if you look at the rest of the vehicle, the pieces of equipment that we have, we've done the same thing. We've estimated the life of each piece of equipment, determined when we would replace it. We estimated the cost of replacing it, and if it, all the way through the out years, there have been reserving funds to replace those vehicles and pieces of equipment. And we've done that with all the equipment that we have, and as you can see, we have quite a bit as we go on to try to manage and deliver services in safe and operational vehicles. Any questions regarding equipment acquisition and replacement? You go and tell them about this.
In addition, Council, it's important to understand what the city manager has explained. In summary, the FY 2001 equipment deferrals were $2.8 million this year. This means this is equipment that we analyzed. We determined that it didn't need to be replaced because it was in good shape. So we extend the life, we get new estimates for that equipment, and if the equipment cost is rising, we will add an additional reserve. But we do not replace equipment just because it's on the schedule.
Yeah, this is a, like I said, we take a look at what's proposed or what should be replaced by manual and or script, and the city benefits from my maintenance experience and my times either in the Army or in aviation, and we defer the maintenance, but using the expertise of our pretty sharp mechanics to take a look at these pieces of equipment. So any questions about equipment acquisition and replacement? If there aren't any, Byron, you can go through the general fund summaries, please.
Okay. Good evening again, Mayor and Council. I'm on page 21, where we begin the general fund summaries. Going through this section, the section lays out the cost of the budget and different characteristics and different formats and layouts. This first page shows the summary of expenditures by object, and this is for the entire general fund. So you can see what our proposed amounts are for personal services, contractual services, commodities, other charges, capital outlay, debt service, and the transfer. At the bottom of that, we show you a graph in a different way showing the same numbers, so you get a feel of how those numbers are sorted. On page 22, we show the same numbers, but in greater detail on the function level. It shows the purpose of each city activity in its specific category by state reporting requirements. So those state reporting requirements require us to show general government expenditures, economic development, public safety, social services, public works, parks and culture and recreation, the non-departmental, the transfers to other funds, the debt service, and the total appropriation, all of which we have gone over from the beginning of the budget work session number 1. On page 24, it's another way to describe the activity. The summary by department shows in the city's organizational chart who is responsible for the control and management of the various activities. As you can see, we start off with the city manager and all of the departments that report unto him directly, the police department, information technology, finance department, community service, planning and community development, public works, and the non-departmental and transfer charges. All of these departments report to the city manager, but this isolates it by department. On page 26, we show the summary of revenue sources. And these are our major revenue sources broken down by personal property taxes, which we are proposing to be $32 million for FY21. Our total intergovernmental will be $16.9 million. Licensings and permits, $521,600. Other charges and other revenue, that would come to $6,251,000, and our use of the appropriated fund balance and transfers to other funds. And down at the bottom of that, we show you the revenue in a bar chart to show you the impact on that. On page 27, we show the total revenue by source on a 10-year trend, and these again are our major categories for revenue: our general property tax, our state shared revenues, licensing and permit, other revenues from other agencies, charges and miscellaneous revenue, fines and fees, along with the transfers. On page 28, shows the tax revenue by source. Again, another breakdown of all the tax revenue that we receive: general property tax, income tax, missions and amusement tax, motor vehicle tax, police protection, financial corporation tax, and hotel motel tax. Again, we show you the stacking of how we get to that in the bar chart at the bottom of the page. On page 29, we give you a diagram of our expenditures by function on a 10-year trend. And again, we go back to those major categories: general government, public safety, social services, public works, park and recreations, the transfer, non-departmental, and debt service. On page 30 is a layout of per capita information on a 10-year trend, and we show that to you on an expenditure basis and a revenue basis, concentrating on total general fund expenditures and property tax revenue over the 10-year period. On page 31 is the real property tax rate and overlapping governments, and all overlapping governments. As you can tell in the first column, the city's tax rate has been unchanged from 2000, and I think we went back to 2011, and we show here that there has not been any change to the city's tax rate over those 11 years. The next column is the county column, look back, and it shows us within Bowie and what you would pay if you were living outside of Bowie. And you can see that there is a tax differential, a reduction in the county taxes for residents that live in the incorporated area of Bowie. And that is to show that the city is not being double taxed for services that it provides that the county also provides. So in order to make sure that that's not happening, the county gives to our residents. This money does not come to the city. This money is a reduction off the citizens' tax bill. So looking at the last column, the total tax rate for FY21 is proposed at $1.67. Next, council, mayor and council, I'd like to go to the appendix. And in the appendix on page 287, we'll start. This is the total personnel by department over the last 3 years. Again, these numbers are summaries of numbers that appear throughout the narrative area of the budget. On page 288, you see our plan of compensation. We have Excel employees that work 1,950 hours per year, and we have Y-scale employees that work 2,080 hours a year. On page 290, it's our hourly pay scale. On page 291 is the compensation for our police officers. The command staff are on grade and step. And the non-command staff, are on grade and step, and the command staff are on our minimum, midpoint, maximum plan. The next series of pages just lists the types of authorized positions throughout the city on our classification plan. It shows you the grade, the class, and the description, and where they fit as far as X and Y table. On page 295, we begin the demographic area of the proposed budget. The next few pages are lifted right from our 2019 CAFR, but they are showed here as context for the reader to understand the demographics of the city. So on the first demographic page, this is demographic and economic statistics. We talk about population, personal income tax, per capita income, median age, educational level, school enrollment, and the unemployment rate. On page 296, we discuss the assessed value of our property. And as you can see, over the years, our assessed value of residential property continues to increase. And that's good information for the city of Bowie. Our next demographic is on page 297. It deals with the principal property taxpayers. And we give you a list of them and their names and location and business type. On page 298, we show you a list of the principal employers in the city of Bowie, and Prince George's County Schools is a top employer. On page 299, Mayor and Council, we have a list of the grants that are obtained by the city during the fiscal years 2019, 2020, and 2021. These are all grants through recreation, through bond bills from the state of Maryland, park and planning, Prince George's County, the federal government as well. But this itemizes all the grants that the city is under the city's management during each fiscal year. On page 300, Council, is where we begin the last section, and that's just a glossary of terms and acronyms and definitions of terms used in the finance and budget language to help the reader understand what's going on in the budget book. And that brings us to the end of the section on the appendix. If there are no questions, I'll pass that back on to the city manager.
Mr. Matthews.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Mr. Matthews, I apologize for talking over something I did. Mr. Matthews,
yes, sir.
Could, and this kind of takes a little bit to some of the things I've done. If you would, I would appreciate it if I saw we went through the budget previously, contingencies amounts. Could you take a look at those contingencies and give me a reference point of how much was used from the contingencies in the previous years?
Okay,
I appreciate that.
will do.
Thank you.
Mr. Matthews, this is Councilman Estev. Quick question. Every year we get questions from residents related to the property tax rate, you know, that even though we're maintaining a consistent 40-cent rate, that because of the appreciation of property values, the raw dollar amount people are paying is going up. And one of the things that we try to kind of explain to residents is that if we were to maintain a constant yield tax rate, you know, we wouldn't even be able to keep up with inflation. That it's not even a realistic proposition to maintain a constant yield tax rate. And I'm just curious, I've been looking around, are there any municipalities in Maryland that have been able to lower their tax rate in the last 10 years without cutting services? I couldn't find any at initial glance, and I was just curious if you happen to have any data on that.
I'm sorry, Councilman, I don't have any information on that.
Mr. Estev, from speaking...
If you're able to do just a little bit of poking around, I would make it a huge priority. But if you're able to find anything on that, you know, I'd be curious to see.
Will do, sir.
Mr. Matthews, this is Councilmember Harrison.
Hi, Councilwoman.
How are you? Thank you for your great work on this. As always, you are appreciated. My only question is, how will this budget change due to the impact of COVID-19?
Well, Councilwoman, the biggest impact on the budget, and we're still working and grappling with that now, is going to be in salaries. I think the city manager over the last few weeks has identified that we're going to be over in our premium pay to our essential workers throughout this COVID process. I could see that to continue to rise until the state decides when we're going to start opening, and looking at the city's emergency plan and reopening plan, how that's going to play in. We're looking at right now that this COVID is definitely going to take us through the end of June. And we hope to come back to you maybe in the month of August or September to show you what we believe the impact on the FY21 budget will be. But we know that right now, based on our trends, we're going to be hit by this COVID at least 2 million to 2.5 million before the end of the year.
Keep in mind, you know, we are working on a plan for the coronavirus refund, our request that came through the county and from the state through the county. It's in from the feds, I assume, where we are potentially could get $3.5 million of reimbursements, and of course we plan to vigorously and aggressively pursue that. So there's certainly a potential for there to at least be a cancel out, if not, you know, a betterment. Also, you know, most likely, you know, we're going to underspend the budget by a few dollars in other areas, and that will also help offset the expense of paying for essential workers. Also, there may be some revenues that we're not collecting in the last 2.5 months that we would have otherwise for recreation fees and hotel, motel taxes, amusement taxes, right, that sort of thing that we are not receiving. Hopefully, like I said, if we can acquire all of as close to all of the $3.5 million that's been offered to us, that will put us in a better position than most, because we have a strong fund balance to begin with, and it's likely that we'll, if like the last 2 years, we'll underspend the budget anyway. So But we'll certainly be prepared to tell you something more in more detail when we, at the end of this fiscal year, and as we look at how things are opening up elsewhere. Fortunately for us, the property taxes are a major source of revenue, and a lot of our residents are federal employees and/or contractors associated with the federal government, and so we expect that there won't be much of an impact there unless there's some outrageously bizarre assessment drop, and that could affect us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Matthews, this is Councilman Wolfley. Quick question for you on page 22. Under general government, you have category business operations. Can you speak to what's included in that category?
Yes, Councilman. Upon the arrival of our new city manager, we had a department of communications. That department was broken up into business operations and communications. Maddie is in charge of the business operations, and I'll let city manager speak more to that.
Stan, what was the
I was first of the first question, part of the question was actually answered already, so I appreciate that. But part two is the undulation, if you will, in the budgeted amounts versus the actual and estimated. So we had an actual for 18-19 of 454. We budgeted 2.2. We went to an estimated 772 for the rest of the fiscal year, and then we're back up again for 2.4. Can you speak to what's included in that number?
Yes, Councilman, you've picked up on an item there that's tied to the Iceplex, and that's for all of the networking that's going to be done in the Iceplex, and it's paid out of the funds that we get from cable revenue. So it shows here. We didn't complete that in 20. It'll be completed in 21.
All right, fair enough. Thank you. The next question I have is, can you remind me, because I'm drawing a blank, the distinguishing characteristics between the X and the Y schedules for our employees?
Yes, sir. Just the amount of hours they work per year. The X work 1,950 hours. The Ys work 2,080 hours. So 40-hour week and a 37.5-hour week.
And what is it determines which category you fall into, whether you're an X or a Y?
Mostly the level of work that you're doing. Most of our public works folks fall into the 40-hour work week.
Okay, so managerial and administration is in the 37.5, and the 40 is in traditional labor.
That's correct.
Union.
That's correct.
Thank you. That's all. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Ms. Mayor, it's time for the wrap-up. Dan, do we have anything to present to them in the form of wrap-up?
There's nothing to present for wrap-up.
So you've given us several assignments tonight, breakdown from one line item or another. We'll certainly have those collected and submitted to the entire council within a matter of days. And so, Mr. Mayor, this ends my presentation of the proposed budget. Right now, it belongs to you all for approval, or dicing, or whatever you like to do, and to get ready for an approval on the 18th or sometime before July 1st.
Sounds good. Thank you, City Manager, to yourself and to the staff. Thank you so very much for all the efforts you put into putting together the budget. as we move forward now, I think you're right. It's for us as a council to make the decisions we'll need to do moving forward. Before we end for tonight, I'd like to ask if there are any council members or anything who have any last questions before we end for the evening.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a question I forgot to ask. It's for the IT department. Does this budget include a focus on cyber? Perhaps that's already somebody's daily responsibilities. But I'm looking at it and I don't really see a cyber budget. That's anything that's allocated towards cyber. It seems to be all operational.
You mean cybersecurity?
Yes.
Yes, that is included in this budget. Cybersecurity is a very, very important part of our operation.
Can you point me to where in the budget it might be included? Like, is that someone's responsibility as a job already, or like where would it be?
We have several people that do cybersecurity. Our network engineers do cybersecurity, down to our help desk folks, and we are even reaching out to have vendors that are in charge of or have a piece to play in that.
So the vendors that are in charge, is that part of professional services, or is that repair and maintenance? Or is
for vendors, yes, that would be a part of professional services.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Councilwoman. Anyone else with any other questions?
Yeah, it's a quick question. Go back, if I may, on community services. As part of the last session, we had a couple comments that were made for the advancement of EV infrastructure, specifically the high-speed chargers. There was commentary made that BG&E has a program where they're providing those free of charge, and I'd like to ask that we include pursuing those to the fullest extent possible in the objectives for community service for the coming fiscal year.
We'll add that, sir.
Thank you kindly. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman. Good. Any other questions before we end this evening?
Real quickly, Mr. Mayor, Al, can you remind me where we are with the funding for the Arts and Heritage Festival request that came in? I think they sent us a breakdown. Can you just remind me where we are with that in the budget, where that's falling?
Oh, that's something that I don't think we ever got around to adding it to the budget, did we?
Yeah. Yes, Councilman, we did not make a proposal and adopt by council a change to the FY21 budget on that line item.
Yeah, it came in after the budget was proposed. So it would, if you all want to support that, it would have to be added someplace.
I'll reach out to my colleagues about that this week, and that may very well be a request we make before we finally vote on it. I appreciate that, Al.
You bet.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Again, any other questions? If not, I'd like to thank all the citizens who were able to work through this with us as well. Please ask that everyone from our council to our staff to the citizens to please continue to remain safe. And I think we will call it an evening. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, colleagues.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Good evening, everybody.
Have a good evening.